Welcome to the summer edition of the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. I'm Amanda Wares, your host, and I have with me today Melanie Willis. Hey, Melanie.
Hello. It's so good to see you again.
It's so good. I know. I'm so excited to be doing this wonderful edition of the podcast. I think it's going to be super helpful and just exciting.
Yes. So, Amanda, today we are going to talk about life after graduation and what does that mean? And, there's just so much to consider. We're kind of in summer time finally, and the conference is behind us. Thrive is behind us. The graduation ceremonies are pretty much over, and students are probably feeling a little bit of freedom right now. Some are probably starting to feel that press. There's only, 6 more weeks till it's time to start moving to college for some of them, or maybe some of them are going to do an apprenticeship somewhere, or maybe go to trade school or a gap year program, or maybe they still have some really big decisions to make. And so we kind of want to talk through that today. And then we also want to talk to you as parents, and where you are in this. Are you an empty nester now, like I am? Or are you still in the middle of homeschooling for the summer? Or are you preparing for school in the fall? And we just want you to know that all of us here at NCHE are here for you for all of these things. And any questions you ever have, we're here for you. Our website is here for you. And we want you to come to us and rely on us to find out all the information that you need.
That's right. One really helpful resource was at Thrive, even though it's over, even though it's behind us. We did record everything. There were so many sessions that speak directly to what we're talking about today. And there was one in particular, I know, Melanie, that you sat in on that was really meaningful to you. And that was from Debbie Mason. It was The Empty Nest, It's Coming. And for all of us, I'm not quite there yet, but it's coming quick. All of us will face that at one time or another. So even if you missed out and you didn't hear that session at Thrive, you can still access it. We have all of our recordings available at nche.com. Just look under the media tab, conference recordings, and they're right there. So that's a great option, a great support for you to really get that encouragement.
Yeah, and I will add that link in the show notes below. And that particular one, you're thinking empty nest syndrome and you're thinking later on in life. She gave so much great information. If you're homeschooling now, even elementary school, just so that you make the best of it and that you're prepared and not just slung into the empty nest syndrome. So it's really a great talk, as are all the others. And so before we get into our main topic today, I do want to make mention we at NCHE have an internship program. And if you have a high school junior or senior, that program is open to you right now. Applications are going to be taken through July the 7th. And so we partner actually with the Indiana Association of Home Educators, and they do most of the facilitating for this program. And it's all from the comfort of your home. They have classes on Mondays each week that are online, and they just really go through all kinds of learning topics that get your student prepared to go out into the world. And some of it is very much based on homeschool life, learning about homeschool law and learning about why we do the things that we do. But they also take these students through a journey that lets them do some writing where they have the opportunity to be published and to learn about what leadership looks like. And it's just really a great program. And then your student does then have the opportunity after the first semester, the fall semester, to stick with NCHE and work with us personally behind the scenes to kind of get some internship hours in that way. And so it's a really, really great program. And again, if you'll go on our website at nche.com/internship, you can get all the information for that there. And again, I'll put that in the show notes. So we hope that you'll get your juniors and seniors to apply for that.
I'm so excited about that internship opportunity. What a great chance for high schoolers to, learn more about leadership and maybe even learn more about themselves as they're headed towards graduation to help them make that choice of what to do after graduation, which is exactly what we're talking about today. So there are so many options after graduation. I know when I was growing up, it seemed like straight into 4-year college was the only option. That's all I really ever heard about. That's all I really ever thought about. But I feel like this generation, our kids, especially in the homeschool world, there are so many options out there. So, of course, there is college, and there's so many different options with that these days, too. We'll talk more in detail about that later. Maybe your student goes into a trade school or apprenticeship training for a career. That is becoming more and more popular every day. They might go straight into work. They might join the military, or maybe they want to take a gap year, and there are tons of gap year options out there. I have looked just a tiny bit into that, and there were quite a few great options. And for the gap year, I'm so excited. We have an interview to share with all of you that Melanie was able to sit down with Pastor Robert Barr of Impact University and talk with him. They are a university, but they also do have a gap year program. And so let's check that out now and just hear what Pastor Barr has to say.
Hi, this is Melanie Willis with the Homeschool Show, and I'm sitting here today with Pastor Robert Barr of Impact University, and we're glad to have you here at Thrive.
Thank you, Melanie.
And so Impact University offers a gap year program and several degree programs, and we'll kind of come back and let you talk to us about that later. But I know that at Impact, you really focus on leadership and growing our youth with leadership skills. And so I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that.
And you know what? Leadership is one of our main programs or our main focus at Impact University. And the reason why that's so important, Melanie, is because we have found out that kids will go through different types of educational programs. And at the end, they just don't understand real world life experience. So the reason why we have emphasized leadership is so that they can understand how is it that you develop a team? How is it that you lead a team? How is it that you evaluate a team? And how do you create and how do you develop and how do you evaluate projects?
And that's so important. So many things that we learn just in book work, and it's not teaching us how to actually function in the world. And leadership is huge. And especially if you're talking about within the church environment, but even, just managing a business, learning how to be true leaders is just vital.
And Melanie, one of the things that we say that everything rises and falls on leadership. So the way that your leadership goes will determine the way a church will go, will determine the way a business will go, will determine even the way a family would go. And one of the things that we also teach about leadership is that leadership is defined as a thing that brings about constructive change. So leadership is very important.
Yes. And I think you brought up that in a family. That's so important because that's really where it is.
Yeah. So leadership is taught on different levels. You've got the business leadership. You've got that individual that is, like I see a lot of young people at the Thrive Conference, really smart. Been impressed with all these homeschoolers. But you've got the leadership that's business, leadership that's entrepreneur. When I see some of these homeschoolers, I'm thinking, my gosh, these are our next entrepreneurs.
Yeah, they're great people.
Great. Oh, yeah.
So you started to touch on that. What are your thoughts on homeschoolers?
Well, let me tell you what, I am an advocate and a fan of homeschoolers, but I've got to make this disclosure if I can. I happen to sit on the board of our public school system public school system board. But in all of that, I have been, when I've seen homeschoolers come through our public schools, when I've seen homeschoolers come through our Christian school, and I've seen homeschoolers come through our Bible school, I have been very, very impressed with them, and I can tell you why. Because of their maturity level, they seem to be very mature. I mean, I'm looking at, you guys can't see it, but I'm looking at 3 homeschoolers in the background, and I'm so impressed with their maturity level. I'm impressed with their connection to Christ. That's outstanding. I'm also, because I have a master's degree in education I got from Wake Forest. So not only do I look at their spiritual, not only do I look at their values, but I also look at their cognitive development and how they're analytical. And I've just been super impressed with our homeschoolers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like my homeschoolers. And so as we move into the next part of discussion, I'll say I actually have sent my
Right. Oh,
homeschooler
yeah.
to your gap year program.
Yes.
And it was, I can't imagine him having not done that.
Well, thank you.
Because
Thank
you
you.
have impacted him so much, which is great because that's what you call your university is
That's
Impact University.
exactly.
So tell us a little bit about the programs that you offer.
Well, with our programs, and the reason why we're here at Thrive is because we want to help get those young folks who are getting ready to graduate from their homeschooler program, and they're wondering what type of school should I go to, what's next. And so we like to encourage them, Melody, about our GAP program. And our GAP program is exactly what it says. It's that gap that students may say, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. So we say, come to Impact, take a year off, and just immerse yourself in God's Word, but also immerse yourself in the practical side of what we develop, leadership. They can immerse themselves in tech. They can immerse themselves in praise and worship. They can immerse themselves in learning how administration works. So that's what our GAP program is all about.
So you really take what they're already interested in.
Exactly.
And then throw in that big leadership thing. And I will say for Joel,
Yeah.
that really grew in him. And I think I've always known that he was supposed to be in some type of leadership, but you gave him the tools
Yeah.
to
yeah.
really hone that in. And so then you also do have some degree programs, correct?
We do. We do for those who feel like they have a call, Melanie, on their lives for ministry, specifically pastoral ministry. We offer a bachelor's program in pastoral ministry, which that is a 2 to 4 year program. People who feel that call, they come in, they get the theology side. But one of the things that we notice is that people can preach well, they can teach well, but they have to work on that leadership. So in our pastoral ministry, we've integrated the theology and also the practical side.
That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. And I kind of want to throw in as a little side note here, because as homeschoolers, we have a great variety of schools available to us that are Christian-based schools. And I think that if I had looked at your school initially, I actually went and spoke with
Yeah,
you
you did,
because I
right.
said, we have a couple of theological differences.
Right.
And so if I hadn't spoken with you and had just passed it up, we would have really missed out on a great thing. And so I think it's okay to look at some schools that may not necessarily theologically line up 100% with your beliefs. And because we had that conversation, we still sent our son to you.
Right.
And I'm so glad that we did. But I think it's important because you do need to pay attention to where
Right.
you're sending your student and to what
Exactly.
type of school it is and what they are teaching biblically. And after meeting with you, I knew that you were teaching the Bible, and
Yeah.
that was important. And so I think that as students look forward to moving on, they should be looking at, not just a school based on its name, but
Right.
what are they going to be learning, and that the parents should
Exactly.
be involved in that to some aspect.
Yeah, and I remember, Melody, when you came, you shared with me your theological differences. And we are what you call spirit-filled or charismatic. We believe in the gifts of the Spirit. But I think where we found the common ground was that we both believe in the authority of God's Word from Genesis to Revelations. And our emphasis when kids come, I say kids, young adults, when they come is to emphasize the Word of God, not some type of experience. And then also to emphasize the leadership program and to emphasize the tech and the worship program. So we were able to we were able to come together and say, you know what, I think this is a great place for Joel. And I'm going to tell you, by the way, if Joel looks at this and the other homeschoolers, we love Joel. We want more Joels in our program. Homeschoolers, I love y'all. I love homeschoolers.
Well, I appreciate you being
Thank
here,
you.
and I appreciate your kind words about
Thank
homeschoolers.
you.
And I do like that, there's schools like you that are specifically hoping that homeschoolers will
Yes.
apply.
Yes.
And I think we're finding that really well across the board.
Yes. And can I say one other quick thing?
Yes.
If they're interested, if that's okay, they can just go to impactuniv.com. Impact, that's IMPACTUNIV.com, and just say, hey, Pat, I'd like to talk to Pastor Barr, and I'll be glad to meet with you, the homeschoolers and parents and grandparents, everybody. So thank you.
And we will put a link to that in the notes below. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
So I love talking to him. He is a wonderful man, and obviously you can tell that I knew him prior to that. And I actually spoke with him yesterday because I have a second child out of my 6 that is going to start going there. I think he's actually going to do one of the full
awesome.
programs, not just the gap year program. But I would
Neat.
like to say, in the middle of that interview, I was kind of talking about some theological differences, and I never quite landed where I wanted to. So I do want to let everybody know exactly what I was trying to say, because as far as theology and what we teach our children, I pray that each and every one of you has instilled in your children, your beliefs, and that they are beginning to get a solid grasp on that. And throwing them out there in the world can be scary because they are going to learn about so many different things. And at this age, they're also easily swayed. Maybe I know I have one of mine right now that's really questioning some things. And so it can be real scary. And so what I really want to say is that just because they've graduated does not mean that your conversations with them have stopped. And so Joel's time at Impact gave us the opportunity to really talk through what he believes, because he was faced with a couple of things. It wasn't anything major, just a couple of little things that were different than how we grew him up. And it was really a fantastic time, because through seeing that and through those conversations that we had with him, he grew incredibly, and it really helped him solidify in his heart what he did believe. And so I think it was a great thing. I don't ever think it's a bad thing to understand how different people believe. And like Pastor Barr said, they're definitely a very Bible believing church, and that's what they were teaching. So that it was not a problem at all. And so if you are interested at all in learning about the program there at Impact, you can visit their website at impactuniv.com. And again, that'll be in the show notes also. And like Amanda, you were saying you had been looking, there's so many options for gap year programs.
There really are.
I will say there are also many different prices. So, if you see one gap year program because we looked at one for Joel because he's a musician, and it was very, very expensive. Don't let keep looking, because there's plenty of options that are not quite so expensive. Or if you've got that money, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be afraid to look around. There are, like Impact is a Bible Christian based option. There are some that are very ministry or missions based. There are some that are not. So it just really is what you're looking for, what your student's looking for, what's going to work for them, both as a family, your own values, your own goal for your student, and like you said, Melanie, your budget, because that affects everything. I mean, let's be real. But what was really cool, I have a young friend here that is taking advantage of a variety of options. So this was really interesting. I wanted to mention, because I just wanted to point out that there's not always just one choice. So this young friend of mine, he graduated this year, and he has been accepted at a 4-year university. He is going to study engineering, but he felt really called and led to do a gap year program as well. So he's doing a 1-year missions-based gap year program, and the university, he has deferred for a year for the university, and it's works out very smoothly. Most universities are perfectly set up to work with that. It's not one or the other, or, if you do a gap year, you'll never go to college. No, of course not. So there's a lot of options out there. That is kind of the theme. So many options, but you really, just like with homeschooling, it's just an extension. We always say homeschooling starts when your babies are born. It starts from birth. And I think it doesn't stop at graduation. You continue on discipling your kids. You continue on in that relationship with them. And I would say my young adults maybe needed more from me in a different way, but maybe needed even more guidance and advice and discussion and prayer and all those things after graduation than they even did before graduation. So I encourage you, don't, if you're having a thought in your head like, oh, they're graduated, okay, we're done. No, it's not going to be that way. And it shouldn't be that way. Continue on with your student in that discipleship process. So that's just my little encouragement for you. But let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the other options. So we've talked about gap years. There's a lot of options out there with that. They can, you can take these in combinations, like I just mentioned. Even with college, if your student is college bound, 4-year university, 2-year trade school, community college, online, in person, there are so many options out there. And I would encourage you, if your student is thinking they would like to go to college, they would like to, they are college bound, look at several different colleges. Maybe don't just look at one, because they are very different. And sometimes I know with my kids, all 3 of my graduates have gone to college in varying degrees of completion or time. One of them went for a year, one of them went for 2 years, and one of them graduated with a 4-year degree. So make sure that you look at the options out there and really think about what is going to fit your student, their goal. One of my kids really he had a certain goal in mind, and that fit him very, very well. Another one probably would have been better off to take a gap year and think about what is the goal. So there's so many options out there, and there's nothing wrong with, taking some time, or even, if they're not sure, take a few classes, maybe take those gen eds or whatever it is while they're thinking through what the options are.
Right. They could take a couple of classes at the community college, especially a math that really keeps the brain going and healthy while they're waiting. Because,
Yes.
we're throwing these children, and I'm sorry, I use the word children, but some of them,
It's true.
they're just not ready to make those decisions yet. 17 and 18 years old, they might need some time to figure out life, and being able to just choose what you're going to do for the rest of your life at the age of 17, that's a big deal. It's just a really big deal.
It really is. Yes, I totally agree. Totally, totally. So that is gap year, and then college is another option. Another thing that in my years of homeschooling that has become way more popular is the idea of trade school or apprenticeship, going straight into a trade, thinking about what are the different trades. There are tons of options out there for a wonderful career that doesn't depend on a college degree. So I can't even start listing off the options. There are tons. And I know we've talked about this briefly before on this podcast, but a lot of those trades, the average age of the people in those trades is in like the 50s and 60s. So all these trades desperately need young people to come in, and because when all the electricians and whatever, when they retire, who's going to be the electricians? It could be your student. And I just have looked at a lot of different electricians, plumbers, HVAC, just a lot of different, mechanic, body work, all these things. So many trades out there that you don't even ever think about. And many of them have apprenticeship options where you don't even need to go specifically to a trade school. You could just go straight in with the company and do an apprenticeship and then move into a position as you learn more. So that's a great option. There are specifically trade schools. A lot of those are in with the community colleges, but not all. There are some that are separate. And those are such good options as well.
Definitely, and being able to get into something a little quicker, maybe, going ahead and start making some money as you're learning. It's really, and Joel kind of, his end game is not to work in electricity, but he actually is working with an electrician right now. He had an opportunity to come in and they trained him on the job and he's having a fantastic time. And now he kind of knows something else that he can use later on in life if all else, drops out. But it's really been a great learning opportunity for him. And I think a growing opportunity because, he's so much into ministry and music. He's kind of getting a little bit of something different. And it's been really great for him.
I think that's so good. Yeah. What a good example of, for our kids, and I do the same thing. They're kids, I'm still my mom's baby, even though I'm in my late 40s. So my kids will always be my kids, my babies. I think it's wonderful that there are so many options out there. One that you had brought up earlier to me that I didn't even think about, which I should have, was the military. That's another really great option for your student if they, maybe they feel led in that direction. Maybe that's just a great fit for them. Maybe if they don't necessarily know what they want to do in the future, but they could do that. They could join the military. And a lot of times in the military, you can explore a lot of different pathways. You could learn about a lot of different jobs, different, things that you could do. And so when you get out of the military, then you would have more of a path. So I think that's a great option also.
And they will also help with schooling, during and after. So it's really a great option for our younger kids that aren't ready to make that decision yet. And they can get some on-the-job training.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is nothing wrong with your student if they know what they want to do and they just want to go straight to work. There's nothing wrong with that either. That can be a perfectly acceptable and wonderful option for your student. So I would just encourage you again, just like with homeschooling, my favorite thing, maybe one of my favorite things about homeschooling is that we can teach our child in the way that is best for them. And so why should that end right when they graduate? They still can take their years of homeschooling where they've, learned the way that they should go. And now they can still make these choices based on what's best for them, what works with their personality and their gifts and their talents and, how God is leading them. So I think that's just wonderful that there are so many options out there for our students after graduation.
And to find something that they truly enjoy, because they're going to be better workers when they're doing something they enjoy, and their quality of life and their family's life is going to be so much better when they're doing something they truly enjoy and are passionate about.
I love that. That's so good. All right. Well, I think that's all we have for you today. I am so excited to have you join us for the summer edition of the Homeschool Show. Keep your eyes, ears out, looking out for when we start back for season 5 of the Homeschool Show. I cannot believe it's already season 5, but it's going to be very soon. So just be on the lookout for that. We'll have an announcement of when that's coming very soon. In the meantime, you have any ideas, suggestions, words of encouragement for us, please send it to us. We do look at every single one. So send us a message to the homeschool show at nche.com. As always, like, subscribe, share with your friends. You can help us out so much that way. So even though it's summer and it is 1,000,000 degrees outside, we want you to keep homeschooling with confidence and joy.